Yep, it's rolling.
Good Monday morning. I'm here in New York City in Central Park. What has grabbed my attention and thoughts here in New York is the feeling of being unproductive. You know, the feeling when you have a really unproductive day. You feel like you got nothing done. And I would like to muse a little bit about that feeling, and I would also like to talk a little bit about not getting too caught up in the idea of satisfying work, because that can be a little bit alluring and a little bit misleading. And then I want to talk a little bit about how it's better to view your work as a process instead of these sequential goals, and think a little bit more about adhering to a process and system and discipline. That's what we're going to talk about today. I am MPJ and you are watching Fun Function. Today's sponsor is Brilliant. Brilliant is a problem-solving website that teaches you how to think like a computer scientist. If you're interested in computer science fundamentals such as binary trees, quicksort, big O, and all that kind of stuff, instead of just passively listening to video courses, Brilliant has interactive challenges with increasing difficulty. It's kind of like a game with a sense of progression. It's very satisfying. Use brilliant.org/FFF when you sign up to let them know that you came from here. Also, if you are one of the first 200 people to use that link, you get 20% off if you get the annual subscription. Check them out after this show. That link is also in the episode description. So the first thing that I want to talk about in deconstructing this idea is the feeling of being unproductive. And what I'm thinking about here is when you spend all day on something that you didn't expect to be spending time on. You maybe you want to solve a problem. You had this idea. You had this task on the board that you were expecting to solve, and yet you really wanted to solve, but instead you just got stuck on fixing the build system or something, and that took all day. Perhaps you didn't even succeed with that. Perhaps you realized that, oh God, I have to work on fixing the build system tomorrow as well. And then you're left with this feeling of that, oh my God, I wasn't productive. And I think that's a little bit problematic way of viewing the world, view productivity, because if you bring that line of thinking to its extreme conclusion, that means that you're only really productive the second you press deploy in your system. It's very important to realize that work and the success of work, the end result when you drag an item to the done column in your board, is that success is only the end event in a long series of failures. And if that's what we realize, that is what our end conclusion is, then how do we feel productive about our work? If the end success is not what we can draw a good feeling from, then how do we feel productive about our day? Okay, so then, what is satisfying work? I think we're gonna narrow it down to something that just feels productive. It just feels like I really got something done. Completing tasks. You have these tiny little things on the board, you just dragging them to in progress and then dragging them to done, and you feel like you're just chunking off tasks. That's a very satisfying day. Another example in a more modest setting, more everyday setting, might be cooking. You get the ingredients out, you chop them up, you fry them up, cook them, make them into a meal, serve it, eat it, boom, you're done. It's a very satisfying activity. And just cleaning up your apartment might also be very satisfying in that way. It just like you take things, put them into drawers, and it feels like, oh yes, progress. It's hits you with a little bit of dopamine. However, what I really want to impose here, like the core idea of my little musing here, is that just because something feels productive doesn't necessarily mean that it is. I'm gonna talk about one example that I had like during my stay here. Bear with me. The thing that I would like to talk about here that is very satisfying work is inbox zero, which is, if you don't know it, is a technique where you always go and process all your emails down to so that your inbox is empty. You leave nothing in it. So your inbox is not something that you gradually process, you always get it to boom, zero. And this is a super satisfying way of working, but it's not necessarily like a one-to-one mapping between being actually productive. And I had such an event here today in New York, where I just had arrived. I was jet lagged, I was feeling horrible, and I couldn't get anything done. You know the feeling when you're set out to do something. I'm gonna check my emails and finally go through all these emails, but your brain just won't do it. It just refuses. You get nothing done. You're all over the place. So, of course, what I do is I go to Twitter, which is my go-to thing, and I just find myself, hey, I could send a DM to Daniel Shiffman, who is another YouTuber, and he is based here in New York City. He teaches at New York University, and he replied. I asked him if we could do a collaboration. Can we do something together? And he was like, yeah, sure, come over here, like on this day and this day, and we just scheduled a shoot, which is a just massive impact of a day. I mean, I didn't get anything done that day except this thing, not a single thing. But this simple little just act of booking a very important meeting that was so high impact, that still made it a great day. It still was a productive day. What I want to get at here is that some tasks are very good at making you feel productive. And inbox zero is such a task. I don't want to shit on inbox zero here, that's important. It might be like it is a very good technique, but it's also important to be skeptical of it because it's a technique that feels productive. So we should always, whenever something feels productive, we should always ask ourselves, was it though? Whenever I use static typing, I always feel enormously productive. Like it's something just that in the human brain that just likes putting things into buckets. If you ever use Ramda, you have sooner or later fallen into this bucket of or this problem where you find like, oh, I need to find the perfect Ramda function for this problem, and you just like go through the list of Ramda functions and I can kind of use this, and you find yourself like that you're looking for a way to break up a function into two functions, and you just find yourself breaking things up into smaller and smaller and smaller atoms, and eventually your code is just, oh, it's so elegant, it's so broken down, but it's completely unreadable to anyone else, even though you think that, oh, it was so cool. Or maybe it is readable to someone else, but the improvement in readability that it caused was like nowhere near justified by the amount that you spent on it. But it felt really productive, it felt really good, because all of the little steps gave you these bursts of dopamine, which is like so nice to constantly have. Feeling productive it's nice. We want to feel productive. It's like it's important for us as humans to get these dopamine boosts, but it's probably a bad, like it's not the whole picture of what we want if we actually also want to be productive. We need a better, more nuanced thinking about this, because I mean, If we want to just feel productive, all we can do all day, I'm going to give you the solution for this. You can just play Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is this amazing game where you run a farm. It is perfectly engineered around the human reward system to give you constant dopamine boosts and make you feel good about things. You farm things, you plant seeds, you water seeds every day, and then eventually it results in plants that you harvest and you sell them, and then you can make jam out of them, and you feel immensely productive playing this game. You feel like the most productive person ever, and you just get this dopamine. I tend to play Stardew Valley during periods of my life where I just feel horribly unproductive and failed, because Stardew Valley always gives you this very nice space where you are the most productive person ever. However, that feeling is not real. It's just manufactured. We as humans tend to be less skeptical of activities that make us feel productive. So if something makes us feel productive, we are less likely to evaluate it. And what I mean by evaluate is think about the task and ask ourselves, is this really productive? And when we're doing tasks that don't feel productive, such as messing with a complicated build system for an entire day, which actually might really be productive, we are more likely to look at it. Was I really productive? Was this really what we wanted to do? And I mean, of course, that thing, if we're messing with a build system, it makes a lot of sense to spend time and reevaluate that. But we should really be a little bit extra mindful of evaluating activities that feel productive, because they can be very misleading in that way. How do you feel productive? How do we feel productive if the answer is not this busy work? If having work that it doesn't feel productive, this dopamine Stardew Valley, static typing, inbox zero kind of thing, if that is not the answer, if we cannot rely on that, then how do we feel productive about our day? My thinking on this is that we need to remodel our thinking of being software developers from this success-oriented mindset into a process-oriented mindset. I would like to propose a model where you think it's my job to bang my head against problems. What I'm essentially talking about here is redefining our tasks as habits instead. So just your job is now to bang your head against problems all day. Why is that important? Why is the process a good idea about thinking about things? It's because, first of all, there's a couple of reasons, but the first one and most important one is that solving things sometimes takes a lot of time. Success in a project or anything in life is just the event that is at a long chain of failures. And it's important to be able to feel good about this long chain of failures, because it's just not healthy to feel bad all the time during a project that might take months, only to feel good for like 5 minutes at the end of it when you deploy it. That's just not a way to live. You won't last long as a software developer if that's your attitude. And even more importantly, if that is our attitude, we will constantly incentivize ourselves to only solve small, simple problems. We will be developers that only go for the low-hanging fruit all the time. We will just avoid hard and time-consuming problems. But that's of course a very bad attitude as well, because those problems might also be the ones that are most worthwhile in development and life in general. When I first started writing this episode, I first defined this sentence that it's my job to bang my head against the problems until I succeed. But I then reduce it to just like bang. It's my job to bang my head against problems, because success, but might not be the end point of what you're doing. We might learn that a problem just cannot be solved. You might find that it's just not going to happen. It's a part of the system that cannot be moved. You don't have access to the system. You might find that hundreds of developers has tried this before, and you would essentially need an army of yourself to do it. You might learn that it looked like a one developer job, but it was actually the job of like a research team for a couple of years ahead. And that is not a failure per se, because you've gotten a learning out of it. You have gotten more wise. Your development team now has a better idea about the problem space and what to do. So you should still like be, yeah, I've done work, I've been productive, I went through this, and we are wiser for it. Another reason why we shouldn't be so focused around like end success is that we sometimes learn that a problem just shouldn't be solved. Might that journey we started out like with this problem space and this idea about how to solve the problem space, but we might realize during development and as we explore the problem more that it just doesn't make sense. We misunderstood the problem, or we misunderstood the solution. We did assumptions around the problem that were just wrong, or we did assumptions around the solution that, or people that were supposed to use the solution that just didn't make sense. We're working on the wrong problem, or we're working on the wrong solution, and that's also a very, very valuable insight to get. The third thing is that there might also be problems that are in the middle ground of these things. Like you find that it's a problem that you realize, yeah, we can solve this, but it's gonna take way too much time to be worth it. But something that really helps with this is time boxing. Just decide that, yeah, I'm gonna work for this for 10 hours and see where it leads. But once you reach the end of that time box, it's okay, now this is just taking way too much time. Because I've, as a developer, I've so many times get caught in a problem, like being the person that on stand-up says like, yeah, I'm soon done, you know, I'm gonna get there. And I'm gonna, no, this week I'm gonna get there. And then, oh, nah, I'm so close now, next week I'm gonna get there. And it's so easy to just be this person that if you don't keep tabs on how much time you're spending on a problem, that you're always like grabbing at the end of the rope and just pulling and it really never ends. It probably will end at some point, but you're way past the point where it was business sense to spend on this problem. And by that time you should just cut your losses and realize that, yeah, I learned something here, that this problem was not worth solving. That is valuable too. That is still productive work. Okay, so let's try to summarize this thing. We talked about how the feeling of being productive, like the feeling of being unproductive, like just, oh God, I didn't get anywhere because all I did was spend time at the build system. And then we talked about the inverse of that dimension, which was like, oh, I felt really productive, I moved things to the done column. But when we also talked a little about how those tasks and things can be a little bit misleading. They always feel productive, but just because they feel productive doesn't mean that they are. You might actually just spend your day just optimizing typings for no good reason, or playing Stardew Valley all the time. And then we wrapped up a little bit by thinking about how we can be productive in this reality where we cannot trust feeling productive. And my idea about that is that we should focus on the process instead, and instead of framing ourselves as people who solve problems, we are people who bang our heads against problems, and then different things comes out eventually. It might be success, but it might also be learnings about how you cannot solve a problem, how you shouldn't solve a problem, or how a problem might just be the wrong problem to solve. I hope that was useful to you in some way. What do you think? Like, is this how you think about development and how you think about problems? Please post a comment down below. Hello, I'm here to remind you that today's sponsor is Brilliant, a website that can teach you how to finally check out big O notation binary trees. Yes, use brilliant.org/FFF. You can also find that link in the episode description. And that's it. If you are new, this was an episode of Fun Function. I release these every Monday morning, 0800 GMT. However, you will forget that, so you can subscribe by clicking here, or watch another episode right now by clicking here. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay curious.